Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to just close your eyes for a second and transport yourself back. It's January 1968. You turn on the radio and you hear this guitar riff.
Dun 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 dun.
That one. It's instantly recognizable. It's psychedelic, it's heavy, and it's got this weird swirling texture that sort of feels like your brain is doing a somersault.
Pictures of matchstick men.
Exactly. The song that launched status quo into the stratosphere. It is a stone-cold classic.
Oh, absolutely.
But here's where it gets really interesting. We aren't just doing a deep dive today to celebrate a hit record. We are here because, if you really look at the history, this record technically shouldn't even exist.
It really shouldn't. I mean, if you dig into the source material we have today, and this is specifically this incredible personal recount from Alan Florence, who was the engineer at Pye Records from 1967 to 72.
Right.
This isn't a story about rock star glamour. It's not about parties or, trashing hotel rooms.
Mm-hmm.
It is a story about anxiety.
It really reads like a workplace thriller. You have a ticking clock, you have a very specific piece of obscure technology, and a career hanging by a literal thread.
And the whole thing, the entire thing, hinges on one mundane, boring morning where a guy was late for a meeting.
So today in the deep dive, we are unpacking the engineering happy accident that saved a producer's job, launched a legendary band, and created a psychedelic masterpiece. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So to really understand the stakes here, and they were massive, we have to rewind the tape a bit. Because before January 1968, status quo wasn't status quo.
Yeah.
They were nobodies.
Well, they were working hard, but they were, essentially failing. They had gone through this identity crisis that was actually pretty common for British bands in the mid-'60s. They were just trying to find their footing.
Right.
Originally, they were called the Spectres.
The Spectres, that sounds very early 60s, very doo-wop suits and ties.
Very much so. And when that didn't work, they pivoted. They changed their name to Traffic Jam.
Traffic Jam.
Yeah.
That feels very of its time. Also, just a terrible name for a band. It sounds like something you want to avoid, not listen to.
It's not great. But the name wasn't really the biggest problem. The problem was the venue and the era. They were signed to Pye Records. Now, for you, if you're not a studio nerd, we need to contextualize Pye in 1967.
Yeah.
This wasn't some cool boutique indie label where they nurtured your soul and let you find your sound over 5 years. Pye was a factory.
They just churned out hits. An assembly line.
Strictly business.
Yeah.
High turnover. And Alan Florence, our source, he highlights a very specific unwritten rule at Pye Records during this time, the 3-strike rule.
That just sounds brutal. Break that down for me.
It's simple, cold math. A new band gets 3 singles, 3 shots at the chart. Pye puts up the money for studio time, pressing, distribution for 3 songs.
And if they don't chart?
You're done. Dropped.
Yeah.
Security escorts you out of the building.
No negotiations? No. I think their 4th album will be their masterpiece.
Not in 1967. The margins were just too tight. If you didn't sell, you were dead weight. And here is where Status Quo, or Traffic Jam as they were, found themselves. They had already released their 3 singles.
And let me guess, crickets?
Absolute silence. No chart action. Nothing stuck. So by the strict laws of the music business in 1967, they were finished. They were effectively walking dead men in the industry.
They should have been dropped already.
They should have.
So why were they still in the building? Why are we even talking about them? Who is keeping the lights on?
2 people, John Schroeder, their producer, and Alan Florence, our source, the engineer. They had, and this is Alan's words, great faith in the band. They saw something in the studio, a raw energy, a pretend that the charts just hadn't reflected yet.
But as we know, faith doesn't pay the electric bill for a record label.
No. And this leads to the moment that really feels like a scene from a movie. The inciting incident. The meeting with the boss. Right. So John Schroeder goes to see Louie Benjamin. Benjamin was the head of Pye Records. Now, Alan describes Benjamin very specifically as a businessman.
Not an artist.
No, not there for the art. He was there for the bottom line. And Schroeder literally begged him. He asked for one more chance. He said, "We think they will have a hit at some point. They are worth chancing."
And Benjamin actually agrees after 3 failures.
He does. But he attaches a condition, a massive catch. This is the high-stakes part. Benjamin says, okay, you can do one more single. Just one.
What?
But if that single isn't a hit, John Schroeder loses his job.
Whoa. Wait. The producer loses his job.
Immediately.
That seems incredibly harsh. I mean, it's one thing to drop the band, but to fire the producer. If this band flops, you're unemployed.
That was the leverage. Benjamin was basically saying, if you believe in them so much, bet your livelihood on it. And this is where we have to look at Alan Florence's perspective. John Schroeder wasn't just a colleague. He was Alan's best friend. They had worked together for years. So suddenly, going into this recording session, the atmosphere isn't just, let's make some music. It's, if this doesn't work, my best friend is on the street.
That just puts a whole different spin on it. You're not just trying to capture a vibe. You're trying to save a career. So they go into the studio to record this do or die track. But they needed a sound. They needed something that would cut through.
They did.
Yeah.
And to understand what they were chasing, we have to look at the musical landscape of August 1967. This is the summer of love, psychedelia is creeping in, and there was one track specifically that had changed the game. Ichiku Park by the Small Faces.
Oh, classic track. It's all too beautiful.
That's the one. Now, Alan Florence had actually recorded the Small Faces years prior at IBC Studios, so he knew them. But Ichiku Park had a sound on it that was revolutionary. It had this sweeping, swooshing audio effect on the drums and vocals.
The phasing effect.
Yes, phasing. Today, you can pull up a phasing plug-in on your laptop in, 2 seconds?
Yeah.
But in 1967, this was brand new. It was a mystery. Nobody really knew how to do it.
It was like sonic alchemy.
Exactly. And according to Alan, the credit goes to a young engineer named George Chikiance at Olympic Sound Studios. Like many great innovations, it came from just playing around with equipment limitations.
A happy accident.
Another one. George found this effect, used it on Ichiku Park, and suddenly everyone in London wanted that sound. Alan remembered hearing it and thinking, we need that energy, we need that magic.
So they have the inspiration, they have the pressure, now they just need the song. They go in to record pictures of matchstick men. But this wasn't a high-tech operation, was it?
Far from it. This is another reminder of how limited the technology was.
Right.
They were recording on a 4-track machine.
Just 4 tracks.
Just 4 tracks to fit a whole band.
I can't even imagine that. I mean, my phone records more tracks than that. Explain what that means for the recording process.
It meant you had to commit to decisions instantly. And it involved a process called bouncing. Alan explains that to get everything to fit, they had to copy from one 4-track machine to another 4-track machine.
Walk us through that bouncing logic a bit more, because I think people hear it but don't realize how destructive it is.
Okay, so imagine you record drums, bass, and rhythm guitar on the first tape machine, tracks 1, 2, and 3. You then mix those together into a single mono signal and record that onto track 1 of a second machine.
So now you have the whole band on one track and you have 3 empty tracks left on the new machine.
Exactly. But here is the kicker. Every time you copy tape, every time you bounce, you add noise. Tape hiss, you lose high-end clarity.
It's like photocopying a photocopy.
Perfect analogy. The
Yeah.
image gets blurrier. So you are degrading the audio quality just to get more space.
And why was this necessary for Matchstick Men?
Because of Francis Rossi, the lead guitarist. He had this very specific idea for an overdub, a high repetitive guitar part.
That signature wah-wah-wah riff. Wah-wah-wah-wah.
Exactly. It became the song's fingerprint. Alan notes that everybody loved that specific sound. It marked the track as something special. However, and here's the twist. Once they finished the initial recording, before the mix, the vibe wasn't exactly celebratory.
Right. I love this part of the story. You'd expect them to be high-fiving and saying, we just made history, but that's not what happened.
Not at all. They finished the recording, they've done the bouncing, they've got the guitar riff. John Schroeder turns to Alan and asks, what do you think? And Alan gives him an incredibly honest review. He says, well, it doesn't really grab me, John, as a hit at the moment.
Imagine saying that. Your best friend's job is on the line. You're just like, it's not grabbing me.
It speaks to his integrity as an engineer, but also the reality of the raw track. Without the polish, without the magic of the mix, it felt flat to him. It wasn't a guaranteed smash.
So they decide to step away.
Yes. They had a fresh ears policy. They never mixed on the same day as the recording. They let it sit for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
And thank goodness they did, because that waiting period set the stage for the happy accident.
So take us to the morning of the mix.
It's around 10 a.m. That was the standard start time. Alan Florence is there. He's got his tape operators, or tape hops, as they were called.
Tape hops, I love that.
Neville Crozier and Terry Evan. They're all ready to work, but there's one problem. The producer, John Schroeder, is late.
Classic. The boss is late, so the crew's just sitting around.
Well, Alan didn't just sit around. He decided to be proactive. He told the boys, let's put the tape on. I'll get a rough mix going so we can have a listen before John gets here.
Okay.
He sets up a basic balance. The tape bops, Neville and Terry, they actually liked the sound. But it still had time to kill.
And this is where boredom meets innovation.
This is the pivotal moment. Because Schroeder was late, Alan decided to try an experiment. He remembered the phasing sound from Ichiku Park. He understood the principle of it, even if he hadn't mastered it yet. He thought, why not try to replicate it right now?
Okay, so this is where I need you to break down the science for us.
Yeah.
How do you create this phasing sound using 1960s tape machines? Alan goes into some detail about a Savage machine and cycles. What does all that mean?
It's a brilliant display of analog manipulation. So here's the mechanics of the sound. To get phasing, you need two identical signals playing at the exact same time.
Right.
So Alan set up two tape machines running completely in lock, meaning they are synced perfectly. Same point on the recording head, same music.
Okay, so you have two copies of the song playing at the exact same time. Wouldn't that just make it louder?
Initially, yes.
Yeah.
If they're perfectly aligned, it just boosts the volume. But the magic happens when you change the speed of one of them just slightly.
Ah,
And Alan mentions using a device called a Savage machine.
a Savage machine. That sounds intense. What was it?
It was essentially a variable frequency oscillator. To understand this, we have to look at how tape machines worked back then. The motors that spun the tape reels were synchronous motors. They locked onto the frequency of the mains electricity from the wall.
Okay, and in the UK, that's 50 hertz, right? 50 cycles per second.
Exactly. The wall power pulses 50 times a second, so the motor spins at a speed locked to that 50. As long as the power is 50 cycles, the tape runs at exactly 15 inches per second. But this Savage machine allowed Alan to intercept that power signal and manipulate the cycles.
So he could dial it away from 50?
He could manually ride the dial. He explains that the technique involved manually moving the speed of one machine just one cycle down to 49 cycles, and then one cycle up to 51 cycles.
So he's slowing one machine down by a tiny fraction, then speeding it up by a tiny fraction while the other machine stays steady.
Exactly. And when you do that, the two sound waves start to shift against each other.
Like sliding two combs over each other.
That's a great analogy, actually. It creates what we call a comb filter. As the waves slide past one another, they drift out of phase. At certain points, the peak of one wave meets the valley of the other wave, and they cancel each other out.
Silence.
For a microsecond, yeah. Then they drift back in sync and boost each other.
And that cancellation is what we hear.
That sweeping cancellation is exactly what creates that whoosh, that hollow jet plane sound we call phasing. It's the sound of frequencies being deleted and restored in a sweeping motion.
And he was doing this manually, just writing the dial.
Yes. Riding the cycles, 49, 50, 41, 50, 49. It's a tactile performance. He wasn't just pressing a button. He was playing the tape machine like an instrument. He added this effect to his rough mix just to see if it worked. It worked brilliantly. That deep phasing effect kicked in. The tape ops, Neville and Terry loved it. It transformed the track from a standard rock song into this swirling psychedelic experience. Alan decided, you know what? I'm keeping it. He left it in the mix.
So John Schroeder finally shows up. He's late. He's probably stressed because his job is on the line. He walks into the control room. What happens?
Alan plays him the mix. The rough mix. The one with the experimental, wobbly phasing effect that Alan had just figured out 10 minutes prior because he was bored waiting.
The moment of truth. If Schroeder hates it, they strip it off, and maybe the song stays flat.
But John didn't hate it. He loved it. Immediately. He didn't want to change a thing. He said, that's it. We'll send that up to the A&R meeting.
Wait, so the version we hear on the radio, the version that is on Greatest Hits compilations, that's the rough mix.
It's the waiting for the boss mix. They never did a final polish. They boxed it up and sent it to Louie Benjamin.
That is just wild. The version we all know and love is basically the let's mess around while we wait version.
It is. They sent it up. They hoped for the best. And as history records, it went to number 7 in the charts.
Status quo arrives.
They were off to the races. I had many more hits after that, obviously.
Yeah.
But for Alan Florence, the victory wasn't just the chart position. And this is the part that really resonates with me. He says the great feeling he had wasn't about the fame or the gold record. It was about the relief.
The relief of saving the job.
Exactly. He said, it saved John's job. It proved our faith was justified. It stopped the anxiety.
It's such a human story underneath all the rock and roll lore. It's about a guy trying to keep his best friend employed.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really raises an important question about creativity. We often think of great art as the result of infinite resources and perfect planning. You know, give a genius $1 million in 10 years and they'll give you a masterpiece.
Right.
But this story suggests the opposite.
Right. It was the limitations, the 4-track recorder requiring bounces, the 3-strike rule creating pressure, and the human error Schroeder being late. That created the magic.
Exactly. I mean, think about the butterfly effect here.
Oh.
If John Schroeder had been a punctual man, if he had arrived at 10 a.m. sharp,
Which he should have.
Alan never would have had the free time to experiment with the Savage Machine. They likely would have done a standard, clean mix.
And without that psychedelic phasing sound, would the song have jumped out of the speakers in 1968?
Maybe not. It might have been just another rock track. That might have been strike 4.
And if it was strike 4, status quo ends. John Schroeder is fired. And the entire history of British rock looks different.
It's the butterfly effect in the recording studio. The delay of one man's commute changed music history.
It really is. It's a reminder that sometimes the mistakes or the boring moments waiting around are actually the most creative parts of the process.
I agree. And I think there is a lesson there for you, or for anyone really. It's about embracing the waiting room moments. When things aren't going to plan, or someone is late, or you're stuck with limited tools. And maybe that's not a problem. Maybe that's the time to toggle the switch from 50 cycles to 49.
Toggle the switch. I love that. Yeah. And also to trust your ears even when the raw material doesn't grab you at first. Sometimes you just need to shift the perspective or the phase a little bit to find the hit.
Absolutely. Sometimes the magic isn't in the notes, it's in how you bend them.
Well, that's our deep dive for today. A legendary song, a saved career, and the power of being late to a meeting.
Just don't tell your boss we said that.
Deal. We'll keep that between us. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time.
Here's a final thought to chew on before we go. We talk about the butterfly effect, how one small moment changes everything. Think about your favorite song or movie or book. How many of those only exist because someone missed a bus or got a flat tire or, like John Schroeder, overslept on a Tuesday morning? It makes you wonder how much of our culture is actually just a series of happy accidents masquerading as genius. Catch you on the next deep dive.